And so the Queen is very nearly at the end of her journey for today. The hearse pulled up at the front of the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh. And she will remain there overnight before the focus then tomorrow turns to St Giles Cathedral in the city. The coffin will be taken into the throne room inside Holyrood House. Which will be her resting place for tonight. So quiet at Holyrood House. And my guests watching all of this today, this moment in history, as the Queen's coffin is taken inside. The Princess Royal, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. The Queen's children.
So she now has 3 of her children with her, and King Charles will come tomorrow.
Yes, the Princess Royal and her husband made that journey with the cortege, staying with her mother throughout that final journey from Balmoral to Edinburgh. And now the Queen's 3 children there inside the Palace of Holyrood House, where the Queen will rest tonight. And again, seeing her 3 children, it reminds us perhaps of those scenes we saw less than 24 hours ago, I think, outside Balmoral, as members of the royal family came out to thank the well-wishers, to look at the flowers, to read all the messages, and we saw those very, very moving images of some of the members of the royal family visibly upset. They had lost a loved one. So easy to forget that Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, for example, who were very, very tearful as they looked at all the tributes that had been left. They had lost their granny. The Prince of Wales, the new Prince of Wales, he's issued that very moving statement talking about how he has lost a grandmother. And just there, again, as the coffin was taken inside, we had just that flash, that momentary shot where we remember that there are children and grandchildren who have lost someone very dear to them, just as the nation says goodbye to the longest reigning monarch in its history. Robert Lacey, who's been with me here throughout the day. You have studied history, you write about royal history, but we have not seen these scenes before, and we may not again.
Well, we certainly haven't seen them before, and I think maybe what's totally unique about today is hundreds of miles of clapping. Has ever that happened before? Starting, as Sean said, with the small, humble church and finishing now in the grandeur of Edinburgh. But it was thanks to the helicopter, which had to take a break halfway through. That's what's unique. As we remarked earlier, other monarchs have died away from the capital, reminders of the United Kingdom we live in. As the generations have gone by, they've been from Queen Victoria, who was just whisked up by train and taken to Windsor, to George V and George VI, who came from Sandringham with more ceremony and public attention. But this moves beyond them all. Every camera shot we saw, where we saw two images, what the camera was showing us and what all those upheld mobile phone screens were showing us too, which were in fact people's memories getting preserved that they will be taking home and looking at tonight. New technology bringing these eternal emotions, an old-fashioned ceremony and meaning home in a new way.
Yes, and what were people clapping? Were they saying thank you? Were they saying goodbye? Were they, as we've heard so many times, that even all the people we've interviewed at Buckingham Palace today, wanting to be part of this moment of history, as you've said, Robert? Mm.
Well, we wondered with Martin, didn't we, how people would react with the conflicting emotions of farewell and then also the welcoming of the new era.
Yes.
Old-fashioned English clapping. Sorry, British clapping. Scottish clapping.
Well done. Don't make me correct you.
Proved to be the way, but it was discreet, restrained, respectful all the time.
It was, wasn't it? Throughout. Really was, throughout. Since 10 o'clock this morning, that is exactly how it has been. And now, Martin Geiser, this is Edinburgh's time now for the next 24 hours. This is, the focus is on this city.
Do you know what's just struck me is that the journey today has taken the Queen from a place where she knew it was a place of rest. It was an informal place for her, and we saw the cortege emerge through the gates of Balmoral without much ceremony to a place of absolute ceremony. We've seen the marching bands there, we've seen the drilled soldiers in the courtyard at Holyrood House, and that's what Holyrood is for the royal family. It's their official residence in Scotland, and it is for ceremony. And so begins a week of ceremony. The quiet, behind closed doors aspect of that long and remarkable life is over, and for the next week it will be about people getting the chance to say those goodbyes. She will rest tonight in a room that she will have known very well. The throne room in the Palace of Holyrood House was used for receptions and for state occasions, so she will have seen many evenings in there. And last night she was in, of course, a room that she knew very well as well, the ballroom in Balmoral, used for the annual Gillies Ball, which was a fantastic social event in the calendar of Deeside. Everybody who worked on the estate was invited to the ball, as were a whole variety of local people, not just the gentry, not just the landowners, but shop owners. I mean, literally down to butchers, bakers, candlestick makers would occasionally get an invite in, and they would dance with the royal family in a ceilidh, not in a formal ball that, you know, people might expect of royalty, but a Highland dance. I don't know whether the shoes did come off, but they tend to in ceilidhs. It's difficult to do.
That's the idea, isn't it?
With any great degree of formality. They're fun, and you know, people who've been to these occasions talk very fondly about how informal they were and how happy the members of the royal family seemed to be when they were in that environment.
Let's turn to Edinburgh itself and Sarah Smith, who is in the city for us as we look at various vantage points that we have from where we are, Sarah, and people not going anywhere quickly, just gently milling around, perhaps some people still in thought, and all eyes will be on
very
Edinburgh.
gradually starting to move away, and from where I am too, I can see people just beginning, but as you say, in no hurry. They've witnessed a moment in history here, and they're not in a hurry to leave, because it's a poignant moment for most of the people who've come here to see this after what has been a really remarkable day. If we think about what we have been watching today, it started off looking almost humble as we saw the Queen's coffin leaving the gates of Balmoral. As it travelled down through Scotland and was witnessed by people along the route, the various towns and cities that the cortege went through, this became not just about watching the Queen's coffin being driven through the streets of Scotland, as very affecting as that was. I think we all caught our breath for a moment the first time we saw it leaving the gates of Balmoral. But this was a day that wasn't just about pageantry and pomp and circumstance. This is a day that became one about the people of Scotland, as they came out in such huge number to line the route, whether it was through the streets of Aberdeen or Dundee, or along the more rural roads that this cortege drove along as it left Balmoral and started its 175-mile journey south to Edinburgh. The people who came out with quiet dignity, but in huge numbers, they showed the respect that Scotland had for its Queen, and just how Queen Elizabeth herself had touched the lives and the hearts of so many people here. What more fitting tribute can there be than the slight surprise that we had huge numbers of crowds, hundreds of thousands of people who stood for hours and hours just hoping to get a glimpse of the cortege. Now, there was pageantry along the way. We saw the proclamations of the accession of King Charles being read in some different cities throughout Scotland and across the rest of the United Kingdom, and that came with all the pageantry you would expect, as the King's Bodyguard for Scotland, the Royal Company of Archers, went to the Market Cross to tell the people of Edinburgh that the proclamation was about to be read. Then the Lord Lion officially told the people of Scotland that Queen Elizabeth was dead and that their one loyal lord and liege was now King Charles III. And you can see how beautifully choreographed these moments of pageantry were, exactly as you would expect. And they contrasted beautifully, I think, the careful and measured way in which these formal parts of the occasion were carried out, alongside all those people who'd come with young children, with their parents, generations of family lining the route, listening to the Lord Lion as he proclaimed King Charles III.
Of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George.
There was a 21-gun salute fired from Edinburgh Castle after that.
God save the King!
As the 21-gun salute was taking place, the cortege was, of course, still making its way south from Balmoral, with its ultimate destination being here in Edinburgh, where the streets were lined with people awaiting its arrival. And then the very last part of the journey of the Queen's coffin came through the historic heart of Edinburgh, came down the length of the Royal Mile, the street that runs from Edinburgh Castle to the Palace of Holyrood House, which was, of course, the Queen's ultimate destination. And she was greeted again by the Royal Company of Archers as she arrived at Holyrood House. You can see here some of the lengthy journey that was made before she came finally to Holyrood, where her coffin now rests in the throne room and will be there overnight until she leaves again in procession from Holyrood House back up the Royal Mile to St Giles Cathedral. King Charles will be following on foot behind the coffin, with other senior members of the royal family being driven up to the Servants of Remembrance at St Giles. And as the cortege arrived at Holyrood House, we saw other senior members of the royal family, 3 of the Queen's children, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, there to greet her. And now you can see just people very slowly beginning to move away the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, which will be thronged with crowds, even more people, I suspect, tomorrow, trying to catch a glimpse of the coffin as it makes its way back up the Royal Mile, before lying in state at St Giles Cathedral for 24 hours. So tomorrow afternoon, lying at rest, I should say, will begin in St Giles Cathedral, and people will have their opportunity to file past the coffin before about tea time on Tuesday. The coffin will be flown from Edinburgh Airport to RAF Northolt, and some of the proceedings in London will then commence. But for now, it's people in Edinburgh who had their opportunity to pay their respects and say goodbye to Queen Elizabeth.